Hello everyone, Namaste. I hope you all are doing good and your studies are going on perfectly well. So today is 7th of January and here are the articles which we'll be covering from the prime newspapers, The Hindu and Indian Express, and these are: in the first one, we'll understand the major threat to the internal security of India, that is the Maoist insurgency, in light of the recent clashdown in Chhattisgarh. In the second article, we will enhance our understanding on rising women in the STEM field and what is the way ahead for them. Along with this, we also have got 5 other simplified articles for you, which we'll be enriching with the prelims boosters. And obviously, students, to make the best out of this discussion, do not forget to download the handout PDF from the comment box and also try to solve the quiz given in the end for actively recalling the important points which we will cover today. So let's get on to the discussion. So students, let's learn about the context of the day. In a very unfortunate clashdown, what has happened that 8 security personnel and a civilian driver were killed in the Bijapur district of Chhattisgarh. So please understand where exactly this has happened. This is in Chhattisgarh. Why am I highlighting this? Because 1/3 of the total left-wing extremist clashes have been happened in Chhattisgarh in the last 1 decade. And this is another one in the countdown. And on Monday, this has happened because of an IED blast which was suspected to be implanted by the Maoist, which led to killing of 9 people, unfortunately. So this brings us to the attention of a major internal security threat in India, created by the Indians themselves. And this is about the rise of Maoist insurgency. Now, in your syllabus of GS Paper 3 Internal Security, you have read about the threats which percolate in the internal security. And there you have read about 3 similar looking terms: Naxalism, left-wing extremism, and Maoism. Today, we are going to distinctively see what is the difference between the 3 of them. So first of all, see, we all are free to get any or to have any kind of political ideology. Any kind of political ideology is driven on the fact that this ideology wants to bring certain social, political and economic changes in the society. So everything is fine till now, until and unless this political ideology tells us to even pick up the arms and do the violent form of agitation in order to get our desired political change. And this is supported in its extreme stances by the political ideology which is known as the left-wing extremism. Now, this left-wing extremism also derives its original ideology from different revolutions that have happened across the world. Some from the Russian Revolution, some from the Chinese Revolution. One particular revolution that was led by Mao Zedong in China. This was a revolution which was based on the philosophy, communist philosophy of Mao Zedong, and therefore is known as Maoism. So the left-wing extremism, which is moreover influenced by the Maoist ideology, political ideology, that is something which is percolated in the southern and eastern belts of India, and this is known as the Maoist insurgency. So I hope you have understood that what is the difference between left-wing extremism and the Maoist insurgency. But ma'am, then what is Naxalism? So Naxalism itself is a form of left-wing extremism only, which is derived somewhere from the ideology of Maoism, but a faction of communist, a faction of Maoist break away after one watershed event which happened in the history of India. That was the Naxalbari movement which happened in Bihar. So this Naxalbari movement of 1967, it was a watershed movement which created 2 different factions which were originally supporting the same philosophy of Maoism. Now these 2 factions, one are known as those who directly participated in the Naxalbari movement and therefore they support what is known as Naxalism, and the other which are also following the same ideology but they do not completely corresponded or completely correlated with the Naxalbari movement. They are the Maoist section. They are the Maoist section, and therefore we have got 2 political representatives in Communist Party of India. One is Maoist and one is Marxist. Okay, so now you understand why this is CPI Marxist and this supports the Maoist ideology. So I hope you have understood very clearly what exactly is a left-wing extremism. Broadly, even if it is Maoism or even if it is Naxalism, broadly, both of them comes under the umbrella of being called as left-wing extremism only, because what is it supporting? That you attain your political, socio and economic goals with the help of armed revolts. And of course, such political ideology will be influencing a lot of people, and therefore it created a lot of rebellious movements in the society, especially led by the marginalized sections which were living in these belts of India. Who are these majority factions? Who are these majority marginalized factions? These are obviously your tribals. So tribal people, tribals were the main proponents and the supporters of this movement of left-wing extremism. So we have understood about these concepts. What is the minor difference between Maoism and Naxalism? We'll be discussing that as well. So Maoism is where they do not support the election and direct participation into the political arena. They mostly rely on the armed struggle only, led by the rebellions, and therefore their existence is completely dependent upon them having the arms or the armed militia with them. Whereas on the other hand, the Naxalist or the left-wing extremist that we properly in the mainstream that we call them, they have got a political representation in the form of the Marxist party, CPI Marxist, and they have been fighting elections in India. We know about it. So what they focus on, moreover, about the mass organization, and they may be having an armed wing, but that is not their sole reliance, because their sole power is the organization of the people. So this is a subtle difference between the Maoist ideology and the left-wing extremism in India. Which areas are tormented by left-wing extremism? As you can see highlighted in the map, these are known as the red corridors, and these are specially plaguing the states like Bihar, from where it originated, from West Bengal, and then we have Odisha, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, some parts of Karnataka and Maharashtra as well, but now they are getting reduced. In fact, the data suggests to us that in the last decade, the left-wing extremism activity has gone down to about 55%. Some even suggest to 70%. Not sure of that, but the official data is telling us that 55% decline has definitely happened. And that is because of the various governmental measures. And governmental measures are required also. Do you know why? Because it is such a plaguing thing in the Indian society, in the Indian fabric, because it not only torments the political arena, but also it torments the social fabric, the economic fabric, the developmental prospects of the country. Let us see what are the challenges posed by the left-wing extremism in India. First, obviously, would be a threat to internal security. The clash towns that we have just seen, and a lot of them, as you can see from the infographic, 2017, personnels were killed in an ambush in the Sukma district, then Bijapur district in 2018, again in Sukma district 2020, 2021 mein Narayanpur district of Chhattisgarh. So obviously I have already told you that most of these clashes are still pertaining in the region of Chhattisgarh. 1/3 are still happening in Chhattisgarh only. So that has become a hotspot of left-wing extremism right now. So you can see that they definitely possess a threat to the internal security, because they led to killing of many military personnel, security personnel, and also the civilians of the country. Second, they also cause social and economic disruptions. How? The main thing that they want is they want to overthrow the government or to run the parallel administration. In order to show their rebellion or dissent against the current government, what they can do? They will directly damage the infrastructure. For example, roads, for example, schools, for example, important institutional buildings, for example, railway tracks. So when you disrupt that, you are causing huge losses to the exchequer, and therefore you are further degrading the developmental prospect and parameters of that area. So it also harms the social and economic fabric. Next, it also causes a lot of human extortion and violation of their human right. One, by forced recruitment, especially of the child soldiers, because they are very easy to be manipulated because of the vulnerability, especially coming from the poor background. They also cause trafficking, they do extortion, they do torture, they do kidnapping also. So these illegal activities is something which they use in order to impose their powers on the people there. Then, of course, they indulge into human right violation. They also alienate the tribal population and create a vicious circle for them. So what do? They convince the tribal population that you are being exploited by the current government, so we need to overthrow the government. So the tribal population join them, and when they join them, they make them do certain exploitative or extortionist or illegal activities. Now they are trapped to be a part of them, be an ally of them, and that is how they alienate the tribal population and create a major trust deficit between the tribals and the government. Now, what are the prime causes which has led to the growth and emergence of left-wing extremism in India? The Naxalbari rebellion were put forward by the tribal people over there because they were evicted from their own land. And for the tribal people, their resources, the jal, jungle and zameen mean everything to them, because that is their inherited property. That is the only property they really love and dwell on. And so therefore, when you evict them from their own property, they become enraged. So one reason is land related factors or resource exploitation. Expropriation of resources, especially by the outsiders. For example, in the Niyamgiri hills of Odisha, Vedanta was to set up a mine, and therefore people rose up to rebellion over there. Why? Because their resources were being extorted from them, taken away from them. Then evasion of the land ceiling law. Even if it is there in India, these regulations are not very solidified in the ground. And therefore, many a times their land ceiling laws are also evaded. In fact, you talk to any of your friend who's living in Chhattisgarh or in Odisha. In many of the cases, at least 1 out of 5 cases, you will find that some land dispute or abadi dispute is going on. One of the biggest reasons for this is this extortionist practice only. Next is the developing socio-economic and the existing socio-economic inequality. In fact, in 2006, the D. Bandhopadhyay committee was set up to analyze the major reasons and causes of left-wing extremism in India. And they found out 2 major reasons. One was the governance gap. And second, of course, was the prevailing discrimination, the social economic discrimination going on in the society. Because if one feels more depraved, then they will resort to those things which are not even good for themselves in the longer run, but they will do it to at least get the short-term gains. For example, indulging into such movements. So that inequality is basically manifested in the form of growing unemployment. They have lack of unemployment, especially in these forested areas where you don't see a lot of infrastructure and development, absence of healthcare amenities, then inadequate implementation of the government policies. For example, PESAG. And Jharkhand, some of these states like Jharkhand have still not implemented it. And therefore, can you see a direct correlation? How the inefficiency or the under-delivery of government policies can also exacerbate these rebellious activities in the people. Then obviously, there are displacements, forced evictions, livelihood-related causes because they are not getting employment, they are not getting their basic shelter, healthcare, etc. Also, some of them have been socially excluded because of their marginalized position in the society and the governance, poor governance related factors. For example, the Forest Act of 1980 was one of the biggest cause of why a lot of this eviction happened and a lot of this turbulence in left-wing extremism happened in the decade of 2000. So that was one of the biggest reasons, poor governance. So then what government has been doing so far? Because the statistics tell us a very good story that in the last 1 decade, there has been 76% reduction in the total number of violence, and a lot of districts have also reduced who are left-wing affected. And then we have seen that roads are developed, post office have been developed, Eklavya residential model schools have been developed for the tribal students. So all of them tell us that the government initiatives have been effective so far. So what are these government initiatives? Very important for your exam. So listen to it carefully, and I will therefore slow down my speed as well here. So there are 3 things that we are going to target. One is strategic effort, which means to ensure that we are catering to this extremism problem in the short term as well as a long-term remedy. So for that, a very holistic comprehensive plan known as Samadhan strategy was created by the Ministry of Home Affairs, which includes all these points, which you should try to write, we should try to learn and write in your mains answer. Next is to create a nationwide policy so that we have a holistic plan, and that was formulated in the year of 2015. After strategic intervention, we also need to be defensive. We need to put the resources, personnel on the spot, on ground, so that they will be able to neutralize such extremist efforts. So for that, There have been Operation Octopus, there have been Greyhounds project of Andhra Pradesh. The similar battalions have been created which very proactively act in order to neutralize these attacks. So again, after that, after having a strategic measure, defensive measure, the next thing and the most important one, we need a sustainable development for the people over there. And for that, we have identified most of these left-wing extremism disturbed districts as the aspirational districts of India under the aspirational district program. And then we are also supporting them with different infrastructure in the form of, there is a road development program which has been road connectivity program incorporated in 2 phases. Then we have also set up fortified police stations so that they can seek law and order as quick as possible. Because see what happens if the governance is absent in that ground, then there is where the infiltration of Maoist or insurgents will happen. And that is when they'll try to create the parallel governments. The need of the hour is to have governance at every nook and corner of the country. Okay, so we have made road connectivity, we have fortified police stations, we also have got certain central assistance scheme as well. Okay, because this is a problem of internal security and we need cooperation from both states and center. So center provides help with the help of certain assistance fund and security related expenditure scheme as well. So all of these schemes have led us to get this result of massive decline in the current insurgency situation in India. But there is something more that we need to do and we need to look beyond this, which is what is the way forward. First of all, everything is about public, driven by public, owned by public, and can be cured by public only. So public participation should be at the center of the Samadhan strategy. One such very good example was the Peace March of 2021, led by the tribal people of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, where they were shouting the slogans of Bastar Mange Hinsa Se Azadi, which means they are proclaiming that they want a ahimsa or a non-violent land for themselves, a non-violent development for themselves. So we need to encourage people to come ahead, and this is also one of the reasons why the Bastar Battalion was created, and it was very efficient because the Bastar Battalion mostly comprised of the local people only there, and therefore the vigilance was very strong, the counter-effective operations were very strong. So public participation is the core. Second is the use of technology, and for that modernization of police forces scheme of government has been instrumental, which can be augmented by more technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, GIS, GPS mapping, etc. And then targeted security operations. So what we need to do, we need to create certain theater commands specific to areas which are more prone to such attacks or such insurgency accumulations. So similarly, something was done by Greyhound, which offers us a very good case study of the Andhra Pradesh police. So what happened? What happened in the year 1989? I've told you 1980 Forest Act. After that, a lot of insurgency happened. So in 1989, the IPS officer KS Vyas, this is the amount of difference you can actually make in the society once you crack the paper. So don't take it for granted, right? So IPS officer KS Vyas is known to create this Greyhound special police. These were special forces who were specialized in counter-insurgency operations against the Naxalite and Maoist terrorists. And taking inspiration from them, Odisha also created one such targeted security operation. Maharashtra creates C60. West Bengal developed counter-insurgency force, and in fact at the central level the CRPF has created Cobra Battalion. So you can put up the case studies of Greyhound, Bastar Battalion and Cobra Battalion in order to justify how government initiatives have been instrumental, okay, and what we can learn further. Then what is required is rehabilitation and reintegration so that the people can be neutralized. People who are working as insurgents, we can put forward a surrender policy for them so that they can be brought into mainstream and they can be given the offers of development. And obviously we need to produce socio-economic development which is also sustainable and self-driven in nature. For example, in the case of Andhra Pradesh, it was seen that a lot of people were supported by subsidies given for growing the rubber plantation, and because they were getting economic benefits out of this rubber plantation, they actually lose the foothold of the insurgent tendencies in them. So this could be a very good case study. Okay, now as we have read all of this, here is a question which has been asked in UPSC PYQ. So I will really appreciate if you can try to attempt this with the help of whatever we have read so far. Okay, now moving to the next topic, and this is a very congratulatory, a very good news for us. So let's learn the context first. In the year 2018, the IITs rolled out a supernumerary quota of 20%, which means out of all the total enrolled students, 20% should mandatorily be women students. To facilitate that, even if we require to have more, to extend more number of seats in the institute, we can do that as well. And the result of that has been such that the enrollments of women in IITs have drastically shot up. And that has been sought in by the Indian Express newspaper in its RTI application. And through that we have learned that a silent revolution has been taking shape in the Indian IITs over the last 6 years because of this one regulation. Okay, in this we will learn about how the STEM sector is becoming more inclusive. But first of all, what is the STEM and why is this becoming a new fad word all across the world? So the emergence of STEM has already been there. It was initially acronymed as SMET, which didn't make a lot of sense and didn't sound cool. So what USA did, US National Science Foundation in 2001 came up with a new field which is rather integrated in nature. So this field, which includes of science and technology and engineering and mathematics, this as a consolidated combined field was promoted since 2001. And of course, us Indians who have engineering and medical systems in our heart, so we are one of the topmost people who are there in the STEM sector. So we have got the highest employed people in the STEM sector and also people who are enrolled into the educational institutions in the STEM sector. We hold first position in the world when it comes to total enrollment. So this is about Indians in the STEM. And what are the facilitating factors? One, of course, is the fundamental duty is to build a scientific temper given under Article 51G. And then we also had the LPG reforms, 1991, do you remember this, by the Narasimha government? And this basically showed us the great opportunity that the STEM field could bring for us. And so ever since then, we have been forcefully enrolling a lot of students into these STEM fields. But of course, this comprehensive field of STEM has gained a lot of momentum and vantage of late because it has been estimated by the same organization of USA that in the very next decade, we'll be having 80% jobs which will be created by the STEM sector alone. And therefore, the inclusivity of the STEM sector has been the main call of debate. Now let's talk about the inclusiveness of the women in STEM. So you'll be very surprised to know, and you'll be very happy to know as well, that majority of the women enrolled in the STEM sector are coming from India only. So about 40% of the women are enrolled in the STEM education as compared to the other developed countries, for example, US, Canada and UK, which are faring, below India as when it comes to enrollment of women in STEM. So 40% of our students are enrolled in the STEM sector. That is a good thing. The problem is only 14%, after that only 14% of them gets percolated into the job market. Are you getting the problem in the Indian job market right now, in the Indian STEM field and inclusivity right now? I hope you are. So from 40 to 14%, this is the data that you need to remember. Alongside, while many of the women actually indulge themselves into premier institutions and they get enrolled into the PhDs, still they receive very small research grants as compared to the male counterpart, which further demotivates them. Second, in the cutting edge technology sector, for example, anything related to Industrial Revolution 4.2, women still have underrepresentation. Only 22% of the women professionals are in the cutting edge technology sector. More worrisome is that the dropout rate of the women from education to job is very huge, which means women have got institutes, they have been enrolled into IIT, but before we were expecting that they will actually get a job in a very good MNC. But the ratio is not proportionate. A lot of them leaks out in the other spheres of society, which means succumbing to marital pressure, or they are dropping out because of the patriarchal structure which is not supporting them to take up further jobs or take up migratory jobs for that matter. So these are some of the reasons why women in STEM, though, are very promising from India, but also suffering from India. What are the persisting challenges then? First of all is the assigned stereotypical gender roles. Women should be placed in the kitchen and not in the STEM fields. Patriarchal attitude in the hiring practices as well. There is a glass ceiling everybody observes when it comes to promotion of women in STEM sectors. Then the lack of proper role models. How many of the women in STEM sector can you count on your fingers? You will not be able to count more than 5. And that is the sad part of our society. Not that we do not have the role models, but first of all, it takes a lot to become a role model, and that too, they are not acknowledged properly. So lack of awareness is also an issue. Next is the stresses related to marriage, birth. So this also causes psychological problems. And obviously, when you enter, even if you dare to enter into the field, there will be several kind of harassment. There will be safety concerns. You cannot do the night shift, etc. So these are the reasons, these are the persisting challenges which already has been highlighted in the All India Survey of Higher Education, which still says that while women, yes, are contributing, are growing in numbers when it comes to their enrollment in higher education, it still remains very low as compared to men. 11 lakh women as compared to 27 lakh men in the undergraduate programs. It has also been highlighted that despite their rising enrollments, one area where women continue to let down is in the terms of the economic opportunity. So the problem is not just enrolling our sisters and our girls into educational institutions, especially in the STEM sector, but also to give them equal opportunity so they make something out of their education, right? So giving them economic opportunity and creating such supernumeracy provisions in the industrial sector is also required. Now, what are the supporting policies of the government so far? So one, of course, has been the supernumeracy of quota of IIT, which has been very instrumental. As you can see from this text, that when it comes to IIT Kanpur, in 2017 we had 900 girls enrolled, and now has got shot up to 2000 in 2024, which is amazing. And of course, because of this, the inclusive infrastructure has also been seen to be growing, which means some campuses have special door policy for female aspirant and parents so that they can come learn about the campus life and then decide whether they want to enroll their child into it. And obviously there are more inclusive hostel, girls washroom, recreational facilities, which, by the way, 20 years before were nowhere to be found in most of the IITs. Now things are going better, and there are certain governmental initiatives which should be lauded for the same. One is the Beijing Declaration of 1995 for promoting gender equality and equity in the society. Next is centers schemes where it promotes gender budgeting. Next is some other initiatives which we'll be discussing here. So at the school level, the Department of Science and Technology promotes the Vigyan Jyoti scheme. It has been launched since 2020. So what happens? The girls from 9th standard to 12th standard, they are trained and they are promoted to join the STEM fields in their school times only. Then once they enter into the diploma and the undergraduate level, they get certain kind of scholarships from the All India Council of Technical Education. This scholarship is known as Pragati Scholarship. Then once they are out of that and they want to do research and development, they want to indulge into higher education, in that case they get Gati, Gender Advancement of Transforming Institutions scholarship. And there is another very important scheme promoting their research and development, the Curie scheme. Both of them are supported by Department of Science and Technology. Now, there are other sectors of technology as well. There is biotechnology, there's defense technology, etc. So for biotechnology, we have got the SERB power promoting opportunities of women in exploratory research. And in biotechnology, we have got the BioCare program, again supporting their R&D. And we also have collaborated with USA to provide fellowship for the women in STEM sector. So with the help of these governmental initiatives, government has been able to enhance the inclusivity in the STEM sector. Of course, there are certain way forwards which needs to be incorporated to add more names in this Hall of Fame. One is to encourage early exposure of the STEM. Are we doing it? Yes, through Vigyan Jyoti scheme, but more interventions can be done. Second is to enhance the mentorship and the role model. Third is to make flexible work environment and policies. Then targeted funding and fellowship should be given to them, especially to the women who are coming from the marginalized or vulnerable sections. Then address the gender bias in the workplaces. So if we have gender inclusive policies all across the different areas, right from their childhood to their institutional level, they will definitely be participating more and working hand to hand with the men of the society. Now here is a very interesting question. You can try to solve it with the help of whatever we have learned so far and more that you can read on this topic. Now let's move to the prelims pointers section. Now all of these are very, very interesting. We'll be quickly wrapping them up with the important facts that are required for prelims examination per se. So one is a very good news here. ISRO for the first time has successfully done a biological experiment by germinating the cowpea seeds, sprouting the cowpea seeds in the space. So where exactly in the space have we done this? Which program is responsible for it? Let's quickly jump on to that. So first of all, what is cowpea? Can you name it? So in Hindi, we call it lobia, just to get a better perspective of it. So some handful of lobia seeds were taken, they were dogged, and I will tell you the entire news very quickly. So what happened in December 30, biological experiment was conducted where these lobia seeds have sprouted, and this was a part of the CROPS program, which is Compact Research Module for Orbital Plant Studies. This was developed by none other than the Vikram Sarabhai Center. Can you name where is this headquartered? Where is Vikram Sarabhai Center headquartered? I will be looking in the comment section. Then what is the scientific name of cowpea? Yes, UPSC can also ask you a question on the scientific names because they have been asking it. So you have to remember the Vigna unguiculata. So this is the scientific name of cowpea, and all of this has been done on board the Poem 4 module. So then what is Poem 4? We'll be looking into the next slide. And this obviously marks a promising step towards sustainable human presence in space. We are trying to put our humans in the space. They also need to be fed with food, which can be grown there only. So this will make the exploration more sustainable, right? And also, there are certain other experiments which are conducted under this CROPS program. One is to see the germination of the seed. Second is to observe plants in microgravity. Third is to see the growth curve of the gut bacteria, human gut bacteria in the space. So these are some of the things that we are going to assess. Talking about the POEM program, which stands for the PSLV Orbital Experimental Module. Here what we are going to do, see, please understand what is PSLV. This is a polar satellite launching vehicle which deploys the satellites into the polar orbits, okay, which is basically used for imagery, etc., not for the communication. Now, this PSLV is a workhorse of ISRO because it is the most reliable rocket launcher of ISRO, which has launched more than 100 launchers so far, satellites so far, right? Now, it operates under 4 stages. Learn about the 4 stages, where the first and third stages are solid stage and the second and fourth stages are liquid stage. So, what happens is the first 3 stages obviously will be spent and they will be falling back to the ocean, whereas the final stage ends up being a space junk. There is no way I can retrieve it back on the earth. So this is creating space debris, which is again a growing problem for us. So what we can do, we can recycle it and create a docking station on the space debris only, okay, so that it becomes functional. So what I'm doing, I'm using the spent PS4, the 4th stage of PSLV rocket, as an orbital platform where I will be conducting certain in-space experimentations, for example, like this. So if you understand where are we doing this, which experiment has been taken on board, and this uses navigation of Navik, and it is powered by solar panels and it is controlled by a guiding system. All of this is not required, but please understand what is POEM platform, okay? So what we have read in this one, we have read what is cowpea, what is the scientific name of it, why is this a very breakthrough experiment, it has been conducted within the CROPS program, and we have learned that what is the POEM program, okay, and how is it also helping us to reduce the space debris. So if you were to write about the space debris problem and solutions, you can quote POEM orbital, okay? Now students, I know I might be going a little faster, I'm trying to slow down, but also there is certain time constraint which we have to follow, and because we have to deliver you n number of articles, so therefore I resort to speaking a little bit quickly, but I believe that you will be adjusting it according to your convenience and you will not be complaining about it. I'm really sorry if it is causing inconvenience, but I'm also a little bounded by things. So anyway, now we are talking about Artesian well, okay. Now this is a very interesting news which has come up. So there's a village, Taranagar village, in the Jaisalmer district of Rajasthan. So there what happened, a local farmer wanted to dig a tube well. Okay, just listen to the story, it's a very interesting one. So on the morning, when he went and he dug the tube well up to a depth of 850 feet, that is when enormous amount of water started spouting from the ground, so much so that you can also see this video which has been uploaded by NDTV channel. You can see how much amount of water started pouring out, and this was analyzed. This was so enormous that it submerged the truck which was drilling. It submerged about 25 bighas of land, and it also secreted some non-inflammable gas which was not poisonous as such, but yes, a lot of geological evictions came out. This the geologists call as the condition of Artesian, or creation of an Artesian well. Now, what is this well and how is it different from the general gravity well? So generally, you have to dig down and you have to pump up the water so that the water at the depth can come out. But in the case of Artesian well, what happens? Once you fracture even a bit of the layer of that Artesian well, enormous amount of water starts coming out on its own without the use of pump. Imagine it like this. You take a long elongated balloon and you fill it completely with water. And then you try to press it, or somewhere here there is a thermocol sheet and there is a thermocol sheet, and you try to press it within these two thermocol sheets. Okay, what is happening is there is immense pressure which is felt by this water balloon, but there is no source for it to come out. The moment I pinch it a bit, I rupture it a bit from here, I have ruptured it to this height, I will see that this entire water, because the pressure was already building up, it will start pouring out. The entire water will start pouring out here. And this is known as Artesian well, and this is a very common thing, especially found in the deserted regions, in the desert areas of Gujarat and of Rajasthan, also in Australia and many parts of the world. The reason for them is that they are basically packed by this reservoir, this aquifer. This aquifer, as you can see, is blocked by a very impermeable sedimentary rock, which is putting a lot of pressure. So the moment you rupture it a bit, the entire water comes out at a spill. So therefore, these are known as Artesian wells. This question was asked in Gujarat PCS. So I have put forward one statement that was particularly asked, that the specific yield of water is highest in Artesian wells as compared to any of the wells. Because with least amount of effort, you get to have the most amount of water. So obviously, the specific yield is high. Okay. Next is what you need to read, that why is it called Artesian in the first place? So it comes from the town of Artiois in France, which was an old Roman city, where they were best known for having a lot of Artesian wells. Okay. And therefore, this middle-aged Artesian word has come forward in the form of all these similar looking features. So these are known as Artesian wells. I hope it is clear to you. Moving to the next topic of prelims pointers. So here we are going to decode the mystery of Indus script. Not us, but actually what has happened is the Tamil Nadu chief minister has announced $1 million of prize for deciphering the script of Indus Valley civilization, which is still not deciphered yet. We all know in our NCRTs, we have been reading it, that we have not deciphered the script yet, but now the chief minister is hell-bent that we should be decoding them. The problem and the nature of Indus Valley script decipherment has been noted down, and we'll be reading it. Now, why is it so difficult to decipher the Harappan writing system? And what can we learn about the characteristics of IVC scripts from that? So the first thing is that the entire writing is not in the form of alphabets. All that we have deciphered so far is that they use a lot of pictograms, and we also haven't deciphered the exact number, the total number of pictograms used. In some places it ranges to about 600, in some places they say there are only 49 pictograms. So that is also not definitive. So first thing, they use pictogram. For example, you can see unicorn, you can see these triangles, you can see these motifs, some animal motifs, some human motifs are used. So therefore, it's not really textual, it is rather pictographical. Second is, it follows a Bostrophidan style, which means they don't write like this, like how we write from left to right. They write in alternate fashion, which means they write from left to right, then they write from right to left, then left to right, then right to left. So this is how they alternatively have their writings. So this we have deciphered that they follow the Bostrophidan style, which is also followed in Greek. Now, it is undeciphered in nature more because of the lack of functionality, that why exactly this text was used. because it has been seen in seals, in potteries, in tools, in trademarks, everywhere. So the functionality also is not particularly clear to us. Next is they use a lot of animal motifs, and they use particularly on the seals, especially which are traded, which were traded back in the times with Mesopotamia. So they also use the narrative imagery, which means if I want to tell you something, I will tell you like this. I will use, let's say, my mouth, which will show that I'm telling you, and I will show you this board, which will show that I'm teaching you something. And then I have to tell you that I'm teaching you about IVC, so I might be drawing these undeciphered scripts only, so that you understand that I'm talking about the IVC scripts. So this is how narrative imagery was used to express. And of course, the inscriptions appear in diverse material, including seals, pottery, etc. And these IVC script actually give us a very good idea of how the society used to be back then, because it is very pictographical. So now we will try to apply our knowledge, solve a question of prelims 2021, and also see something, learn something from this explained article. Here they have given us 4 motifs. Now let's try to learn from UPSC point of view what is important. First one, you can see the Pashupati Nath seal. This was found where? Harappa or Mohenjo-daro. It was found in Mohenjo-daro. That's the first thing. There are 4 animals surrounding him. You should be knowing the names of the animals. That is important to understand whether horses and cows were a part of Indus Valley civilization or not, whether lion was there, tiger was there or not. The second one is about a unicorn. So was unicorn present in this unidentified mystical animal was present or not? Yes, it was. It is given in NCERT also. Then there are certain mold of seal showing a man fighting with 2 tigers, which mean tiger were known to Indus Valley civilization people. And then elephant. So elephant was also known to them. So this is how we carefully read onto things so that we can solve those questions in the examination. For example, can you see this one? Here one statement says that they employed horse-drawn chariots in warfare. But nowhere in the motives you've seen horses. And UPSC also acknowledges the fact that they were not having the knowledge of horses. So by that, we will be able to eliminate this, and the correct answer would be 1 and 2. Now another interesting topic, which is the liberalization of the India-USA nuclear deal, which has been one of the most instrumental civilian nuclear deals ever struck between 2 powerful nations. So what is the news is that US is setting to remove certain Indian entities from the restricted list under this India-US nuclear deal so that they can fully realize it. So this nuclear deal was actually a brainchild of our former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Joint statement was made in 2005 between Manmohan Singh and US President George W. Bush. It was officialized and officially signed in the year 2008, and after that it came to be popularly known as the 122-123 agreement. So this question can also sprout up in the examination, that what exactly do you mean by 123 agreement? It is the India-USA nuclear deal. It facilitated the civil nuclear cooperation between these 2 countries. Why was it required? Because India was not a signatory to NPT and NSG. And as a result, it could not get the imports, the nuclear supplies to build its nuclear program. But we wanted it for the civilian purposes, for civilian uses, and therefore USA came to shake hands with us. So USA said that we will supply nuclear fuel and nuclear technology for only your civilian programs, and in return what you commit to do is you allow the inspections from the International Atomic Energy Agency. This inspection is also known as implementing the additional protocols, something that UPSC has asked in the prelims paper. Now, India therefore gained the eligibility to buy the US dual-use nuclear technology. Can you name one convention which India has signed and it officializes us to have to import and export the dual-use technology and goods to each other? I will be looking for your answers in the comment section. Now, we have got the last topic of the day. And this is about the drying Vembanad Lake, a very important Ramsar site of India. This is in fact the second largest wetland system in India, to your surprise, after the Sundarbans in West Bengal. The Vembanad is the largest lake in Kerala which surrounds itself across 3 districts, which is Kuttanad, Kottayam, Alappuzha, Ernakulam district. Now, this is also known as Vembanad Kayal, Vembanad Koal, the Punnamada Lake in Kuttanad, and the Kochi Lake in Kochi. So, it is a very vast and very expansive lake which is drying up. In fact, it has been said that it has shrunk up to 37% since 1983. Reasons, can you guess? Of course, it is because of the land reclamation, because it is because of deforestation, it is because of increasing pollution which is causing algal blooms there, and also because of the creation of a barrage which led to siltation in the lake. Okay, so Kuttanad specifically, Kuttanad is also considered as a rice bowl because this is where below the sea level rice farming also happens. So that is also drying up, that is also a degrading wetland as of now. And of course, this lake, if it is drying up, does it mean that the rivers are also silting up? Yes, the 4 rivers which are Meenachil, Achan Kovil, Pampa, very important one, and Manimala. These 4 rivers are the source of this lake, and it is separated by the Arabian Sea by a very narrow barrier island. This barrier island is also known for its backwater stretching. Then we also have Vallam Kalli, very famously played in the Vembanad Lake only. This is also known as the Nehru Trophy Boat Lake, which is a snake boat race held every year in the month of August in the Vembanad Lake only. And of course, is it a Ramsar site or not? Yes. And even after being designated as a Ramsar site for 20 years, it is still continuously seeing its degradation. Now, why are we reading about this? Because of the growing climate change, industrialization, anthropogenic activities, a lot of lakes are in shamble. Many of them have been asked by UPSC directly. So in the year 2019, they asked about the Aral Sea drying up. And then in 2022, they asked about which of the following lakes of West Africa has become dry and turned into desert. The answer, all of us must be knowing, we do PYQ analysis very intensively, we are good students. The answer is Faguebine. But can you tell me, why did it dry up and where exactly in which country is this lake located? So I believe that you have gained good insights from today's discussion of Analyst. And moving little bit extra mile for you, because I could get a certain things which could be asked in prelims examination, and I felt like telling you that. So there are few countries which have declared 2024 as their hottest year on record. This has been Australia, this has been Hong Kong, Indonesia, Germany, Brazil, China, and Czech Republic. India has said that ever since 1901, this has been our hottest year. Then what is Twix Stats? This can be asked from Science and Technology section. So this is a new tool which reveals the genetic view of people's ancestor. So this is basically to understand the ancestry, to understand the population demography. And also one question was about colossal squid, because for the first time the largest ever squid species was discovered 100 years ago. And the squid, you must know, belongs to the category of mollusk. Now why am I telling you this? Because question on mollusks, a very important mollusk is octopus, has been asked in UPSC twice. Okay, so squid can also be asked. Squid also comes under the category of mollusk. What are mollusks? These are those invertebrates which are generally marine oriented only, marine species only, which have their body covered with shells. So for example, snails you see, right, your oysters you see, so all of them are covered by shell. Now squid and octopus directly are not covered by shell, but still they come under the classification of being mollusks. Okay, so this is all that I had to offer for today's current affair. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Keep studying and keep studying very, very smartly and diligently. Thank you so much. Wishing the best for you all the time.